So in the response to intervention triangle, you have your tiers of intervention. The RTI system is a process. It's not a meeting, it's not what you do, it's the process that you go through every single day, weaving in and out of these tiers based on what the child needs. So tier 1 is our core instruction. Currently at Hamilton City we have Storytown. So that's every general ed classroom. They are doing their program and providing instruction to the children. This 80% over here is your core 80. You'll hear it called core 80. That means in the classroom, as you do pre and post assessment, on your post assessment, you want to make sure that 80% of your classroom has met mastery. If 80% aren't there, then that's the sign that you probably need to go back and do some reteaching. It's those 20% that you have looked at in your data and progress monitoring who need to go back and have some reteaching. When you break down into intervention groups, you're going to jump in through these tiers. Tier 2 and Tier 3 are only separated based on time, frequency, and intensity. The programs don't necessarily define the tier. It's the time and frequency that define what tier that child is working in. Currently, we have LLI. LLI right now is being provided as a Tier 2 intervention. We have most of our title teachers providing that to the children in small group. Now, LLI could jump up into a Tier 3 depending on intensity. If you took that down into maybe one-on-one, you are increasing the intensity, so you're providing more intense instruction up here at Tier 3. Spire is for the basic reading skills. Again, it's in Tier 2 and Tier 3. You can have it up here based on the intensity, the time. For example, I might work with a child 3 days a week for 30 minutes in a group of 5. Or here I might work with a child 5 days a week, 45 minutes in a group of 1 to 3. So that as you climb up, it is your intensity and frequency that is changing. Read Naturally focuses on fluency. Again, Read Naturally in a Tier 2 could be just a pull out during the day with a group of children, could be up to a group of 15 children. As you climb up, you might be reducing that to a group of 5, providing a more intense intervention. Do the math again, Tier 2 and Tier 3, these are interventions for math. Can be either way, depending on how much time, intensity, and frequency that you are providing instruction with that child. As we go up through these tiers, your team should be meeting regularly to talk about progress monitoring. So these guys, your core instruction as a teacher, you're moving along pre and post testing, checking that your core 80 is there, having conversations with your title and special ed. You then are progress monitoring your children who are provided these tiers of instruction, typically every 2 weeks, especially these kids up here who are your lowest kids. You are definitely progress monitoring. And then you're going to have data meetings, conversations about where all the kids are at, how they're performing in that intervention. So for example, if you have a Spire group going, that teacher would meet with the classroom teachers, title, special ed. You guys have a conversation about the scores. Does the child need to remain in Spire? Or have they closed that gap with basic reading skills? If that's the case, they need to move out. Go close the next gap. So when you have those conversations, you're probably at about 6 to 10 weeks of instruction, looking at the kids. Are they progressing? Are they not progressing? If they're not progressing, having the conversation about their data. Do they need to remain in Spire? Is Spire not working? If it's not working, might they need to move to something like LLI? Or might you need to put another layer on? Do they need LLI during the day with title and Spire during the intervention block? Maybe you need 2 levels of intervention for that child. Continue to work with that child, progress monitor, looking at their data. Now you might be 12, 16 weeks in. You've had these data conversations with your team of teachers, and coming back to the table, talking about this same child, you have 2 possible programs going on, they're still not progressing. At that point in time is when you might kick it over into an IAT meeting. You've got about 12, 16 weeks of data. The data is showing that you've changed the intervention, you've increased maybe intensity, time, and frequency, and the child is still not progressing. At that point, what your conversation is, I need to bring more people to the table to have a conversation about this kiddo. So you fill out your paperwork, make an appointment, come to an IAT. Some people that might be involved in the IAT are, of course, all the teachers that are involved with that child. Your intervention specialist, your title. You're going to bring the parent to the table at this point in time. And possibly your school psychologist would be involved in that IAT, or a principal or assistant principal, depending on if you're dealing with some behavior issues. You're going to have a conversation about this child and where you need to go next. So it might be then that this conversation says, you know, we are going to keep them in LLI Inspire, but let's put them in a second intervention block. Maybe they are a third grader and they can also participate in a second grade intervention block. So you're coming back. Again, this is a process. You're flowing through this naturally. It's just what you do in your building. And you're going to do the plan. Might be another 2, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, depending on how that child is progressing. If you come back to the data team, which now consists back of just your grade level, special ed, intervention, everybody on that team, coming back to that meeting, and you notice, you know, even with the new plan, they're still not progressing. You're going to put in the paperwork again and come back over and have possibly a second IAT. You're probably now 20 weeks of data in, and that's when the school psychologist certainly is going to be kicking in here and maybe doing some academic testing, or, you know, whatever the team decides necessary. IAT and RTI's purpose is to prevent testing for special education, not to promote testing for special education. But in that rare instance where the child is not progressing, even though all of these interventions have been put in place, the intensity, the frequency, the time is in place, and this person is still not progressing, you may then refer for testing. And then they're going to kick up into Tier 4, which is special education. Again, the goal, it's very few who are going to make it up to Tier 4 because you've put all of these interventions in place from the get-go, from kindergarten. You've identified those children who might have struggles in school. Once they have been identified in special education, that does not mean they leave these tiers. They absolutely remain in those tiers. Those are the kids that you're saying need to be in those tiers. So they still might have LLI with title. They still might have Spire with their intervention specialist during intervention block, and title pull out during the day. But certainly those are the kids who we are making sure we have time, frequency, and intensity with. That doesn't mean everybody else isn't in here during your intervention block. Your entire grade level is breaking down, and we are making sure that we are targeting every single child, teaching them in their targeted specific need, and working through these tiers organically every day.